What do you do when you know you're in an abusive relationship and your partner says to you, hey, I want to go to therapy and I want to change? Should you give them another chance? Can someone like that actually change? Today I'm answering a question from an Instagram follower. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can go to my account at Living Free Finding Love. The link is also in the description here. So I'm going to start by reading this question to you, and then I'll give my answer, my perspective. So this person says, "Hi Lindsay, I hope you read this message because I feel so desperate right now and I don't know what to do. I've known this man, he's 28 years old, I'm 24, for 4 months, and I really liked him. He is generous, protective, and careful. He takes care of me with acts of service, words of affirmation, gifts, and quality time, etc. We come from the same city, but have had different upbringings where he is from the suburbs and I am from the wealthier parts of the city. He has some values that I don't like, for example, not wanting his girlfriend to have friends of the opposite sex, and I don't think it's fully normal to have that situation. We disagree on that, and recently we've been fighting over it a lot. He's lost his temper and raises his voice and says very hurtful things to me, things I've trusted him with that he uses against me. He's told me he will change, and the last time it was very hurtful. He told me to leave and didn't want anything to do with me. I got mentally ready for that and just didn't respond to his calls or texts when he apologized and told me how sorry he was and wanted me back. He told me he's very sorry and realized that he has been controlling and limiting me. He wants to get professional help from a psychologist to deal with past traumas. His dad passed away 4 years ago and he hasn't healed from that. He also doesn't have any relationship with his mom, and he was abandoned when he was younger and hasn't healed from any of that. He has trouble dealing with his emotions and gets overwhelmed and acts out, hurting me. Now he wants to change that, and I'm wondering if I'm stupid or naive for giving him another chance. I know it's possible to change, but what are the odds? And does he do this to keep me waiting? I told him I want a 1-month pause and then we'll meet and catch up. I need some time alone to reflect and heal what he has said to me and see if it's something I can live with. Not him doing it again, of course, but the fact that he has hurt me like that. Also, I don't think he sees it as abuse since he told me that he hasn't hurt me physically. I told him that it's still emotional abuse. Help me out, please. I'm grateful for any response or guidance." So to the woman who asked this question, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. This is a really difficult situation to be in. You're in an abusive relationship, and I know you already know that, but I want to share with you what I'm seeing here, how I know that. So the first thing I see is that he is controlling. He doesn't want you to have any male friends. That's not okay. Now, it would be different if this was an ex-boyfriend who is excessively close to you and who's kind of like creeping up into your relationship. Doesn't sound like that's what's happening here. Sounds like you just have friends who are men. That's perfectly okay. I also see that he yells and says hurtful things when he's upset, especially things that you've shared in confidence, things that are sensitive, things that are vulnerable. He's throwing those back on you when he's upset. That's also abuse. What I also see here is that he has trouble dealing with his emotions and gets overwhelmed and acts out and hurts you. This is an especially dangerous one. This is one that can very quickly escalate into physical violence. So that's what I see here. And you would not be stupid or naive for wanting to give someone like this another chance, but what it would be is very dangerous. The number one thing that needs to happen if someone is truly going to change, if they've really had this like come to Jesus moment and they understand that what they did was wrong, they have to own it. And so he did a little bit of that here. He said, yes, I'm controlling. But if he's pushing back on calling it abuse, that's a sign that it's not actually going to change. Getting help for his trauma is a good place to start, but that alone is not going to change the abusive patterns. And let me tell you why. Abuse is a pattern of thinking. It doesn't come from trauma. Trauma will fuel an emotional response, but If trauma caused abuse, well, then everyone who experienced trauma would be abusive. And that's not the case. So trauma will fuel the emotions that he feels, but the entitlement, the thinking patterns of the abuse are what actually causes the abuse. Abusive patterns of thinking, the true cause of abuse, is very often passed down through families and society. They're the attitudes that men learn from other men around them. And we're talking specifically about men here in this situation. Things like, that's my woman and she's not allowed to talk to anyone else. That's the kind of stuff that fuels abuse. So in order for him to truly change, he would have to work with someone who specialized in helping men unwind these abusive patterns of thinking. He would need to learn how to relate to women in healthy ways and how to manage his emotions in a healthy way. This would take years of therapeutic work. This isn't something that's just going to happen in a month or just when he decides that he's going to be different. It takes a lot of work to change deeply ingrained patterns of thinking and patterns of behavior. As you probably know, if you've ever tried to change something about yourself, it's hard work and it takes time. And this would only be if he truly did own what was happening here. He owned that it was abuse. And again, he's not seeing it as abuse. So all of this is kind of for naught. If he's not seeing it as abuse, it's not going to change. So is it within the realm of possibility that he could change? Yes, it is possible, but it's highly unlikely in this scenario. If you were my friend, a client, or a family member, I would advise you not to go back. If you did go back, I would be very worried about you. I'd be concerned for your safety. I want to share a resource here that I found related to assessing whether a person has truly changed in an abusive relationship, and this is specifically for men who abuse women. This is a resource from Lundy Bancroft. He wrote Why Does He Do That?, which is an amazing book for women that are in abusive relationships. I'm going to leave the link to that here and also the link to the checklist that you can go through yourself. But this is a checklist, again, for assessing whether a person, whether a man can actually change or is really changing. So here's all the things that have to happen. Admitting fully to what he has done, stopping excuses, stopping all blaming of her, making amends, which means apologizing, accepting responsibility, meaning recognizing that abuse is a choice, identifying patterns of controlling behavior, admitting their wrongness, he's starting to do that, identifying the attitudes that drive his abuse, accepting that overcoming abusiveness will be a decades-long process, not declaring himself cured. Not starting to say, so now it's your turn to do the work, not using his change as a bargaining chip, not demanding credit for improvements he has made, not treating improvements as chips or vouchers to spend on occasional acts of abuse, like, I haven't done anything like this in a long time, so why are you making such a big deal about it? Developing respectful, kind, supportive behaviors, carrying his weight, sharing power, changing how he is in highly heated conflicts, changing how he responds to his partner or former partner's anger and grievances, changing his parenting, changing his treatment of her as a person, changing his attitudes towards females in general, accepting the consequences of his actions, including not feeling sorry for himself about those consequences and not blaming her or the children for them. So as you can see, this is quite a list here. There's a lot to do, and this is not something that can just happen even in 1 or 2 therapy sessions. This is years worth of work. So for him to say, oh, I'm changed now. I'm fully and completely healed. I'm going to be different and I'm just going to do this and everything's going to be fine. No. Now I know he didn't say he's fully and completely healed, but that's kind of what we're left to assume. Like, oh, if he can just change it that easily, well then yeah, I guess he can heal that quickly. And that's what I want to point out here. This kind of change, this kind of healing does not happen quickly. If it's going to be true change and true healing, it will take time. So I do not recommend going back. You do not have to settle for a relationship where someone isn't being good to you, where someone yells at you, where someone uses the vulnerable things that you've shared with them against you. And make no mistake, that's what this would be. This would be settling. This is not what a healthy relationship looks like. You can work things out when it's a different situation. You can work things out when someone is able to control their behavioral responses when they're upset. You can work things out with someone who doesn't control you, who doesn't lash out. This situation that you've described is not that. So to the woman who asked this question, use this break to get some professional support. In particular, find someone who specializes in working with women who've been in abusive situations. Use this time to heal and get strong and to know that you deserve so much more than this treatment. If you want to know what a healthy relationship actually looks like compared to an abusive one, click here. I have a video for that. And click here to subscribe. I come out with new videos every single week for healing from toxic relationships and finding real healthy love.